The sun bled orange across the Rio Grande, turning the water into a ribbon of molten copper. Kaya, a young Apache scout from the Mescalero band, crouched on the riverbank, his moccasins sinking into the mud. He had been tracking a wounded deer for 3 days, but the trail had gone cold at the water's edge. Hunger gnawed at his belly, and the weight of his people's expectations pressed heavier than the quiver on his back. They needed meat, they needed hope, and Kaya, barely 20 summers old, carried both burdens alone. He was about to turn back when something glinted among the reeds, a flash of polished cedar, unnatural against the wild tangle of the river. A canoe, not Apache, not Comanche. Its lines were sleek, foreign, the kind of craft paddled by traders from the east or the pale settlers who kept pushing west. But it was empty, half sunk, one side cracked like a broken rib. No paddle, no cargo, no sign of its owner. Kaya's first instinct was caution. A trap? The river had swallowed men before. Quick currents, hidden snares. But curiosity, that old Apache companion, tugged harder. He waded in, the cold biting through his leggings, and hauled the canoe to shore. It was lighter than expected, the wood still strong despite the damage. Inside, beneath a torn blanket of woven wool, lay a bundle no larger than a saddlebag. He hesitated, then pulled it free. The blanket fell away, and Kaya's breath caught. A child. Girl, maybe 3 years old. Her dark hair matted with river mud, her skin pale as birch bark. She was unconscious, lips blue, but her chest rose and fell in shallow, stubborn breaths. Wrapped around her was a scrap of paper, water-stained but legible, pinned to a tiny deerskin dress. Kaya unfolded it with trembling fingers. Her name is Elena. Her mother died on the trail. I cannot carry her farther. If you find her, give her a chance. God forgive me. J. Harlan. Kaya stared at the words, written in the angular script of the settlers. He knew enough Spanish and English from the traders at the fort to piece it together. The canoe had been set adrift, deliberately. A desperate act by a desperate man. But why here? Why now? He looked at the child again. Her face was delicate, foreign. High cheekbones, a scattering of freckles across her nose. Not Apache. Not even close. She was Bilagana, a white child, the kind his people had learned to fear. The kind who came with soldiers and treaties and broken promises. Kaya's hand went to the knife at his belt. One cut, one push back into the current. No one would know. The river would take her, and the deer trail would still be waiting. His people needed him. This child was not his burden, but her fingers twitched. A tiny sound escaped her throat, a whimper soft as a bird's. And something in Kaya cracked open like ice on a spring river. He lifted her gently, cradling her against his chest. She weighed nothing. Less than the deer he'd failed to bring home. Her skin was fever-hot despite the chill. He pressed his cheek to her forehead and felt the heat of life clinging stubbornly to her bones. No, he whispered to the river, to the sky, to the ghosts of his ancestors watching from the cottonwoods. Not like this. He built a fire with what dry mesquite he could find, wrapping Elena in his own wool blanket. He had no milk, no soft foods, only jerky and a pouch of ground corn. He chewed the jerky himself, softening it with saliva, then fed it to her in tiny pinches when her eyes fluttered open. They were green, startling, unnatural against her pale face. She stared at him, uncomprehending, then closed them again. Night fell hard. Coyotes yipped in the distance. Kaya sat with his back to a rock, the child in his lap, his rifle across his knees. He sang under his breath, an old lullaby his mother had sung to him when the world was still kind. The words were in Ndi, the language of his people, but the melody was universal. Elena's breathing steadied. Her small hand found his thumb and held on. By dawn, she was sitting up, sipping water from his canteen. She didn't speak, didn't cry, just watched him with those impossible green eyes, as if trying to decide whether he was real. Kaya knew he should leave her at the mission in Tularosa. The priest there took in strays, Indian, Mexican, white. They would baptize her, teach her their God, give her a bed. But the thought twisted in his gut like a knife. The mission was 3 days' ride. The child might not survive the journey. And even if she did, what then? She would grow up surrounded by stone walls and bells, her story erased, her name changed to something Spanish and forgettable. He looked at the canoe again. The crack could be mended with pitch and rawhide. The paddle was gone, but he could carve one, The river ran north for a while, before bending west toward the mountains, toward home. He made his choice before the sun cleared the mesa. The journey took 9 days. Kaya paddled by night to avoid patrols, hiding in the willows by day. He hunted rabbits with snares, boiled roots, sang to the child when she woke screaming from nightmares. She learned his name, Kaya, and said it like a question. He taught her Apache words, she for water, Wichon for dog, and Zu for good. She repeated them solemnly, her tongue stumbling over the sounds. On the 5th night, fever returned. Elena burned like a coal. Kaya carried her ashore, wrapped her in cattail leaves soaked in cool river water. He prayed, not to the Christian god of the note, but to Usin, the life-giver, the one who had spared him in battles he should not have survived. He offered tobacco to the 4 directions, his voice hoarse. Take me instead, he begged. She is only a child. The fever broke at dawn. Elena opened her eyes and smiled for the first time, a small, crooked thing that lit her face like sunrise. She touched his cheek. Kaya, she said, clear as a bell. Home? He laughed, a sound that startled birds from the reeds. Soon she die. They reached the edge of the reservation at twilight. The mountains rose purple and gold, the air sharp with pinon. Kaya's heart pounded. His people would not understand. A white child? In their midst? The elders would demand she be sent away. The young warriors would see her as a threat, a symbol of everything they'd lost. He carried her through the camp on foot, the canoe left hidden in the brush. Whispers followed like smoke. Children peeked from wiki-ups. Old women crossed themselves, some with Catholic gestures, some with older signs against evil. Kaya's aunt Nai'i met him at the door of her hogan. Her eyes narrowed at the child in his arms. Dîner bon dia oui, she said. This is madness, Kaya knelt. She has no one. The river gave her to me. I will not give her back. He studied Elena, who clung to Kaya's neck, silent but unafraid. The old woman sighed, the sound of wind through dry grass. Then she is yours. But the council will not like it. The council came at dawn. 6 elders, faces carved by sun and sorrow. They sat in a circle, Kaya before them with Elena on his lap. She played with a string of turquoise beads he'd given her, oblivious to the tension. Beadzeel, the headman, spoke first. You bring the enemy into our home. She is not the enemy, Kaya said. She is a child. Her people take our land, our water. Our children die while theirs grow fat. Kaya's voice did not waver. Then let us be better than them. Let us show the world what Apache honor means. Not just with bows and arrows, but with open hands. Silence. The fire crackled. Elena looked up, sensing the shift. She reached out and touched Beadzeel's knee. Nju, she said softly. Good. The old man flinched as if struck. Then slowly he placed his hand over hers. His eyes glistened. That night the camp held a feast. Not for victory, but for survival. Elena sat between Kaya and Nai, eating fry bread with sticky fingers. The women brought blankets, tiny moccasins, a cradle board carved from cedar. The men told stories, not of war, but of the old days when children of all tribes played together before the world split apart. Years passed like seasons. Elena grew tall and strong, her hair darkening to the color of river silt. She spoke Ndi fluently, rode bareback like the wind, tracked deer with Kaya's old bow. The camp called her Twe Komi Wichii, Little Red Dog, because she followed Kaya everywhere, fierce and loyal. But the world outside did not forget. In 1886, a cavalry patrol rode in, led by a captain with a scar across his cheek. He carried a photograph, a daguerreotype of a woman with Elena's eyes. The captain's voice was rough with grief. Her father was a surveyor, died of fever near the border. We've been looking for the girl for 5 years. Elena, now 8, stood beside Kaya, her hand in his. The camp gathered, silent. Nai clutched her medicine pouch. Beadzeel's face was stone. The captain dismounted. She belongs with her kin. Kaya stepped forward. She has kin here. The captain's eyes flicked to the rifles, the wary faces. We can do this peaceably. Or not. Elena looked up at Kaya. Do I have to go? The question hung in the air like smoke. Kaya knelt, eye to eye. What do you want, Shidai? She thought, small brow furrowed. Then she turned to the captain. My mother is dead. My father too. Kaya is my father now. This is my home. The captain opened his mouth, closed it. He looked at the child, then at the Apache faces, proud, unafraid. He saw the cradleboard hanging in Nai's hogan, the tiny moccasins worn soft. He saw Elena's hand, scarred from a fall while learning to ride, matching a scar on Kaya's palm from the same day. He remounted. Tell her people. Tell them she's safe and happy. As the patrol rode out, dust rising behind them, Elena turned to Kaya. Will they come back? Maybe, he said. But we'll be ready, with more than rifles. That night, under a sky thick with stars, the camp held a ceremony. Elena was given a new name, Asdza Twehomi, Woman of the Night Dog, for the way she had faced the soldiers without fear. Kaya stood beside her, his chest tight with something deeper than pride. Years later, when the reservation schools opened and the children were forced to cut their hair and forget their language, Elena refused. She taught the others in secret, under the cottonwoods, passing on the songs Kaya had taught her. When the government agents came for the wild ones, she stood in front of the youngest, arms wide, and quoted the captain's own words back to him. She's safe and happy. Kaya grew old watching her. His hair turned silver, his hands gnarled from years of carving bows and cradles, but his eyes never lost their fire. On the day he knew was his last, he called Elena to his bedside. She was a woman now, married to a young silversmith, her own children playing outside with stick horses. He pressed something into her hand, a small bundle wrapped in the same wool blanket from the river, faded but intact. Inside was the note from J. Harlan, preserved all these years. Read it, he said. She did, her voice steady. When she finished, tears tracked down her cheeks. You kept this? I kept you, he corrected. The river gave you to me. I gave you to the people. And you gave us back our future. He died at dawn, the sun rising red over the mountains. The camp mourned for 4 days, as tradition demanded. On the 5th, Elena led the children to the riverbank where the canoe had been found. She carried a new one, carved by her husband, painted with symbols of dog and stars and open hands. They set it in the water, empty. A gift. A promise. As it drifted north, Elena spoke to the current, to the sky, to the man who had chosen her over fear. Thank you, Shita, she said, for teaching me that destiny isn't found. It's carried, one child at a time. The canoe vanished around the bend, and the river kept singing its ancient song, carrying stories, carrying hope, carrying the weight of small hands that change everything. And somewhere, in the ripple of water against cedar, Kaya smiled.